everybody, and welcome to tonight's Elite Dangerous live stream. As you probably know, my name is Paige Harvey. I'm one of the community managers here at Frontier, and I am joined by the...
What is the big one now?
Scottish Stephen Benedetti.
Quite straightforward. Hello everybody, how are we today? How are you doing, Paige?
Not bad. And hello to everybody in the chat. It is lovely to see you here.
Hi guys.
How are you doing, Stephen?
I'm fantastic. I'm actually really excited about this. It's Thursday, one of my favourite days and favourite streams to be with my favourite community and favourite people in the world. Everything's favourite. So thank you guys for tuning in today for this fantastic, really interesting Stargazing Tour.
Hopefully yes. So over last year when we started the Stargazing Tours, we went to a lot of very beautiful looking places. However, people were saying, well, what's the story behind them? So I thought we would start with what I'm calling the lore expedition.
Yes.
And this time we're going to start with Sol. So we're going to have a little look over our home system, how it's sort of developed in 1,000 years, what's actually been going on, you know, where did the Federation come from, and, you know, what is the lore behind the system, as it were.
Exactly, that's fantastic. But we've got a wee bit of news before we go in today. So as we know, the January patch notes.
Yep.
The January patch 2 came out. So it came out
Tuesday.
this Tuesday, and it put some fixes in for console for the FSS stuttering. The stuttering on entering a system.
Yes.
So if you guys are still experiencing any issues, please over to the issue tracker and let us know.
Yep.
As you saw, some of the issues that we thought were resolved, like the Thargoid heart bug, it wasn't fully resolved, so we've reopened those issues.
Yes.
And if you have any data on that, that'd be fantastic to send through to us.
Any information, even if it's just I'm experiencing this as well, that really does help us, because we can sort of have a look at how many people it's affecting.
Yeah, and I'd like to address the fact that people have been saying about mining changes. Obviously, with the new change up with the void opals, please let us know that all these videos that are done and all of these comments are really useful for us to look into. Obviously, as you know, Elite's an adapting game. We've implemented this change to try and make it a bit more fair, to try and level out the economy and different things with the void opals and different types of the goods, all that stuff. So basically, we do read these comments, we do see how they go, we do appreciate all of your comments, all of your issues, everything's coming in, we are listening, so thank you for that, and we will be taking that into consideration. So if you have any questions, we'll try and answer. If we can't answer, we'll try and find people that can and get back to you.
Pretty much.
Pretty much as it goes.
There's also interesting news, so
Interesting news?
Well, the Hutton's event is still ongoing.
Yes, and I have the one that I participated in and got the first Hutton mug out on for Operation Hot Mess, and I think that's 10,000 mugs that have been given out. So well done, fantastic job, guys. We got to get rid of these mods. Not you guys in the chat. We love you. We got rid of these mods.
So if you want to go about and you want to help take some mugs around the galaxy and try and get one to every single station that there is, there's still loads of places that need mugs, so you can go out and do that. And also, if you are interested in coming to the Elite Community Meet this year, which I believe is April 11th, which is in Cambridge.
It is in Cambridge.
It's in our hometown.
We will be there.
They will actually be putting out tickets, and the location, I believe, tonight at 8:30 p.m.
8:30. So after you've watched us, you've got 30 minutes, and you can go over there and do that. Listen to some live.
Yeah, that, and there is a Hutton mug, as I'm seeing #mugs in the chat
for the mug.
There is a mug currently going to Antarctica.
I know, it's unbelievable. They're trying to put there's mugs going about the whole world, and basically this one's now going to Antarctica, and it's coming back, and then it's going to be it's going to be sent off for charity. There's going to be an auction for it.
Awesome.
That is amazing. Imagine having a mug, not only just a Hutton Orbital mug, but a mug that's been to the Arctic and back.
The Antarctic. They're two
Antarctic.
different places.
Sorry, Antarctic and
one
back.
has penguins, one doesn't. And are they ever going to do one in the US by now? Yes, there actually is going to be a mini ECM meetup in, was it Texas?
Texas.
In Texas. So they should be releasing details on that as well. But obviously it will be smaller because they've never done one out there before, but you can get in touch with them and see what's going on.
Yeah, and so if you are interested in any of this stuff, please know that we put up a lot of this stuff on our social channels, on our newsletters and on our forums. And if you want any of these videos you can hit that subscribe button to get notified of anything like that, or any of our new videos, or just go over to our forums and stuff like that as well.
Yep. So, Stephen, you might want to realign your camera, but we, when we were coming into Sol and we were just, getting all set up and ready for the stream, we found something pretty cool. So we're going to start off. Look at that! That is an FNS Farragut class battle cruiser.
Yes.
So this guy, far as I understand it, he protects the Earth.
He does, and he looks mean.
He's
Look
insane.
at this. Look at this.
So this, you know, like it's always a little bit difficult to sort of gauge how big things are. We don't have bananas for scale, but look. So if we get you to take your ship as close as you can without getting attacked in a minute, But look, this thing, for just so you can understand how much can fit in it, it can take several squadrons of Federal fighters and multiple Federal corvettes inside it.
That's
Like,
just a nice
you can just
ship.
keep shoving corvettes in there.
Yeah. So why are we here on Thursday? For anyone who's not seen a Discovery Scanner.
Well,
Not Discovery Scanner. The wrong one. Stargazing Tours.
So the Stargazing Tours is where we take you on a little trip around the galaxy to maybe look at places you haven't been, to learn a little bit about some of the stories in the galaxy you might not have come across, and just to sort of introduce everyone a little bit more to the world of Elite as it is. We've also started doing on our social channels the Wish You Were Here postcards, where we find some of the coolest places we know about, and then we're going to let you know about them with some screenshots which I've been going out and taking, which is super fun. Last one was Wambea, which was like a big bleeding nebula, which you can go out and find, which is really cool. So yes, we're now doing our lore expedition, so we're going to Sol, and if there's anywhere else with like really great stories or places you want to know more about, let us know. Maybe we can do something there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this guy is right outside the Earth, as you can see, FNS Trander, which is super cool. So what we learned about these is they are not made for comfort, not like the Imperial ships. These guys are just pure utility and firepower. So if you put one of these directly up against an Imperial capital ship, this would blow it out the water. So
it would just totally decimate
There's
it.
not
It's
even
just
water
gone.
in space, but it would blow it out the water. So
But we were quite surprised how close we could get to it, because I
Yeah.
thought I would be shot out of the
2.2.
sky.
See if you can get closer. 2.28. But yeah.
I mean,
So-
we don't need to see Stephen blow up. We've seen that many times.
Yeah, it's like a shark. It's a big thing with lots of little ones inside. So
We're getting there. We're getting there.
yeah, so these guys do tend to get a little antsy if you get too close. But yeah, Federation ship. It's big, ugly, and it's powerful. But yeah, this guy is just strong.
Yeah.
And I love it. I actually really like the design myself. It actually feels quite streamlined.
Yeah.
For just being sort of very raw. I really like it.
It is a really nice looking ship. I love that. It's just, it looks so nice. But we are here not only to see this, but
Yeah.
we also have this beautiful
at
planet,
that.
which some people may recognise.
Well, you might recognise it as the planet we're currently on, just, you know, a good 1,000 years plus in the future. Obviously, Sol, which is what we're going to talk about tonight, is our solar system. Things have changed over the years, and there's been a lot of reason why, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But let's have a quick look at the galaxy map and then when you get into Super Cruise. If you want to pop yourself into orbit around the planet, you can have a nice little look at that while we go over to the galaxy map. We're just going to have a little bit of a look about where we are placed in the galaxy, because we're in the inner Orion spur.
The
So-
inner Orion
Yeah, so
spar.
if you just hit Earth and
Oh,
let's
wrong
just...
one.
So one thing you can do if you've not used the Super Cruise Assist before is it's not just to make getting to places a bit easier, you can also use it to go into orbit around planets and bodies. So we can just sort of pop ourselves into the orbit around Earth, have a little look at that, which is very pretty. There we go. And that way you can go into the camera mode and you can take pictures. Now, you can't land on Earth. That is very true. And the answer for that is very simple. Elite Dangerous doesn't currently have atmospheric planets. Earth is an atmospheric planet, so I'm afraid at the minute you are not able to land on it. We only get to admire it from afar. But at the same time, there's some reasons why you possibly wouldn't want to go down there. Possibly. So we'll have a look at that. So yeah, obviously, here's Sol, controlled by Zachary Hudson, who is the federal president. And we can have a look at our system itself. Now, most of the bodies are correct for what we currently have. Some of the tiniest ones aren't mapped, aren't actually on here because they are literally so tiny. But yeah, you've got Earth, you've got Mars, and you've got tons of different sort of stations, loads of places you can go and chill out.
Mercury, Venus, Earth. Mars.
Yep. I mean, everything should be there, and if it's not, we've got a problem.
They're still all there, that's the main thing. Jupiter.
Where did Neptune go? Yeah, Jupiter, Saturn. You can go and check out all of these as well. And they are very beautiful. You'll find a nice load of black markets here in Sol.
Why is that?
Well,
well,
the birthplace of humanity.
Pluto's still there.
Venus is very stunning. Maybe we'll have a look over at Venus.
Venus would be nice.
Yeah, Charon. Then you've got loads of stuff which is further out, further out, further out as you go.
It's in Salacia.
Mm-hmm.
Hamu Qua.
This is funny just to watch you talk.
Just to see if I can actually. Eris, Sedna,
and Persephone.
Persephone.
Yep. So if you go back to our galaxy map, let's have a look where we are actually placed. So obviously there's Sol. If we zoom out a bit. And keep going. So this really does help us sort of put into perspective where we are in this galaxy. Like, look at that.
I mean, that's insane. The actual vastness of where we are and everything that's going on. It's insane how massive that is, especially when you go into all the neighbouring systems and everything else around it. Look at that.
So obviously access to Sol is locked behind a permit which is issued by the Federation itself, being, you know, its home system and of very high cultural significance, and there's a lot of very rich people in Sol. But you can earn the permit by gaining the rank of Petty Officer with the Federal Navy. And I know you, well, obviously you're here.
I mean, this is my personal account.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of got yours accidentally.
So mine was, as some of you know, in our Monday Let's Plays, I was part of the Federation for a while. And when I was in the Federation, I was doing some missions. I wasn't even that long. I've got 200 hours clocked just now.
I think so, yeah. We checked it out, about 200.
Just on my personal account. So that's obviously not my dev's account. So on my personal account, I've clocked 200 hours. And I got to say, it was probably not too long in. It didn't take me that long to get it. I was just accidentally, not accidentally, I was doing some missions for the Federation and I just unlocked it, so it wasn't too hard to get. It was actually it was good to get towards it. Didn't expect it. I was like, oh, I've got this back. Oh, it's Sol, it's my home.
Yeah, so if you want, you can grind for it. If you really want to visit, you can obviously go and do loads of Federal missions and just search them all out. But it is one of those that you can kind of just work your way up to. I think I did that with the Imperial. It was just like, hey, have a ship. And I was like, what? Okay, surprising. So, yeah, the history of Sol is largely the history of the Federation. We're going to learn a little bit more about that. But you can see now that our solar system has a population of roughly 23 billion people.
Wow.
In a democracy ruled by Mother Gaia, which are a democratic faction, which is pretty cool. So let's have a look at Earth. Let's just go back out and fly around the Earth a little bit while we talk a bit about its history. We should already be orbiting, which is nice.
And then what I'll do is...
you got your nice little ship there.
I'm just going to fly out so we can have a... Oh, it's a night time.
Ooh, I love that. It's so pretty. So
nice.
Obviously, starting where we are now, throughout the early part of the 21st century, we saw manned space flights beyond the moon. And, there's lots of companies currently vying, trying to get different kinds of craft out there, trying to get different things out there, trying to plan trips, trying to get people actually out to live. There's so much currently going on, and obviously Elite Dangerous takes that and runs with it. So we saw that there were manned space flights beyond the moon in the 21st century. However, it took massive population issues and massive economic issues and running out of fossil fuels and a lot of war, as we will see, for the corporations to actually start shelling up some money. So to actually get out into space and start looking at maybe trying to get some bases out, on Mars or the moon, the corporations had to start sending out money. So what happened was, towards the end of the 21st century, they started sending out the very first generation ships. And around 70,000 in a few decades went out. As we saw in some of our previous streams, most of them didn't go very well.
No. Some of them went oddly well with the...
Some of them went oddly well.
With the Golconda?
With the Golconda.
The Golconda was one that came out. That was an interesting initiative.
Yep. The Golconda, which we found in Upper Nicholas, had a living crew still aboard, obviously descendants of the original crew who went out, and they chose to stay on their ship because they didn't know what the world was like outside of it. But when they started to have an illness spread, they reached out for some help. The end sort of came about that they were going to get their own station, which was built for them, an orbital outpost called Forester's Choice, which you can find in Upper Nicholas, and then they took the generation ship and they stuck it in orbit there as well so they can keep it, which is nice. So you can go out and see that now, see the generation ship and the crew who are still living in Forester's Choice in Upper Nicholas. But yeah, 70,000 odd ships came out. We haven't found a ton of them. The ones that we have found, the majority of them ended either with pirates or they ended with, well, one of them had an insane child who threw them all out of the airlock.
That was a crazy one to hear, because we went and saw some in a different... it was the Christmas special. We went and saw one as well. They had some great stories.
Yeah. Another one shot a dog.
Not the dog.
Not
Can't
the dog.
No dog.
No. So yeah, lots of those. So that's essentially what happened. So our first looks were to try and get generation ships out, and only one that we've seen so far managed to survive. However, as I say, a lot of this came about because corporations started pushing money into getting people off of the Earth because the fossil fuels were dwindling and the corporations were trying to take over, and there were more people than the planet could handle. Oh, look at that.
Look at that beautiful sun approaching rise. That's stunning, isn't it? Absolutely stunning.
Just have to look at that and be like, oh, it's beautiful.
It's the artwork and the everything that's in this game just looks stunning in comparison to the sky and everything, doesn't it?
Unfortunately, while we're looking at this beauty, we need to know what happened to get it to this point.
Yeah.
So in the 2030s, Earth had a major energy crisis because of dwindling fossil fuels, and it's kind of what we are seeing in real life, so I hope the rest of this doesn't come true. And then unrest started to spread between the nations of the Earth over who was going to have the reserves, what was it going to be used for, who was going to have, the majority of the power. And in 2044, the Third World War began between the majority of the countries on the Earth. And all the money that was sent out for, things like generation ships and all the money that was put out towards getting people out into space was pulled back, and they took it back in for war efforts. Now, unlike the First and Second World Wars, at the cost of a massive, catastrophic loss of life and major environmental damage, there were lots of technological advancements made. Obviously, that we've used that going forward in the game 1,000 years later. You see what we've got. We've got our own personal spaceships, but it was at the cost of like millions of lives. Now,
Not
a lot
worth
of
is it? Not worth it in the end.
So this war was started over who was going to have the resources that the planet was left with. So a lot of the weapons that we used were nuclear. And there was things like intercontinental ballistic missiles, which were topped with thermonuclear warheads. And most countries that took part in the war were destroyed by the warheads, all apart from the USA.
Born in the USA.
No, do not sing that song. The USA had a very interesting sort of protective field, as it were. They had a laser grid, which was able to detect missiles coming in and deal with them, essentially. So most of America was unscathed. Most of the other countries were not. And obviously, with that much nuclear fallout, a lot of places become inhospitable. There wasn't food growing. There still wasn't resources. But USA being the only place that survived, they became the dominant power. And that dominant power changed the name after the Third World War to the Federation of the United States. And the remaining few countries that survived, the wreckage of the world, came and joined them. So they became the Federation of the United States, which then decided to simplify its name to the Federation. So the Federation you know today was born out of the Third World War and from everything that was left on Earth coming together. So we can see why they have a bit more of a militaristic background as opposed to the Empire, who were initially more focused on peace.
Peace never lasts, but does it?
So when the war ended, it ended in 2055, so it was going for 11 years. The planet was left horrendously damaged. Like, as I say, nothing was properly growing. There was nuclear fallout. There would have been sickness. There would have been just everything would have been decimated. And the corporations then had to try and step in and help rebuild human civilization. The easiest way to do that was to start building lunar outposts, which began in the 2070s. So sort of ramshackle, but the best that they could in the 2070s put onto the moon. And at that point, they were trying to build back up and get the Earth back into a habitable place to be, which you can see they did succeed, but this is 1,000 years in the future. So, Stephen, shall we head over to Mars? Because that's where the next part of our story goes.
That sounds like a good idea.
And I have seen some people in the chat asking you to turn off the orbit lines. So if we do that, when we actually get there, that'll be cool. You having trouble with your controls?
No, I was trying to find.
Keep going.
It's when you look into it and you're like, I passed it. No, that's the wrong M. I was trying to read it.
There
we go. It was just in M's. I was reading the M and I was like, did I just miss the right M? And I was like, no, I've got the right M.
Yep, don't worry. It's the one past Earth. Keep going.
Is this the one where you go past Earth?
Well, you're going to notice something very interesting when we get to Mars.
Okay.
And we'll have a look at that in a minute. So, if you take off your Super Cruise Assist, you'll be able to probably get there a bit faster. And sort out your orbit lines when we get there. Yeah, I don't know exactly what percentage survived, but most of the USA was unscathed because they had this protective grid that was able to keep a lot of the country safe. So whoever survived joined up with them, and what was left became the Federation.
What am I doing? I'm doing the wrong thing.
What are you doing?
No idea. I'm coming back here.
Turn off your Super Cruise Assist. There you go.
That's the first thing I was going to do. Never turned off the lines before.
No, that's all right. I mean, personally, I fly with them on, but...
I like to see them on.
Now, you might notice, look at that hologram. That's a bit interesting. That's not a red, dusty, rocky planet, is it?
No, that looks like quite similar to Earth.
I mean, it looks like it's called an Earth-like world.
It kind of it does say Earth-like world.
Why is Mars an Earth-like world? We're going to look at that.
It's like Earth's an Earth-like world.
So before we go into the 22nd century, where things start to change, in the late 21st century, colonies on Mars and the Moon became permanent and viable. And it was a sort of a very... there's not many details, but it was a very sort of ramshackle way it was done. Again, it was very crude, but they managed to make Mars habitable. So, when we get there, we will have a look.
It's not like Mars Attack.
No, hopefully it's not like Mars Attack. That would have been problematic. Coots asks, where is Raxler? No.
Redacted.
Right. So yeah, if we get a little closer, then we'll throw back on our Super Cruise Assist. We'll go for a little fly around Mars, and we can turn off our orbit lines as well, which is cool. Yeah. It took me a long time to get all of this information together, but it was a lot of fun.
So why did you decide for the first stream to be around Sol?
Because essentially I wanted the first episode to be close to a lot of people's hearts, and the easiest way to do it was to start in the place we're all from. Pretty much seemed pretty simple. Start with somewhere which has got a rich history, lots to learn about, and it will influence a lot of the rest of the galaxy. Yeah, tilt that nose. But yeah, it will influence a lot of what we learn about the rest of the galaxy. I think the next one we might do, we'll look into the Imperials and a little bit about them and where they're based and, what's going on all there. Yeah, there's a lot to learn, and like a lot of people that haven't been to Sol won't know that Mars is an Earth-like planet. And why is it? Commander Thatchin, we're going to be, we don't have much to say about that yet, but I will stop being curious in a minute and explain.
Stop being curious.
Don't worry. Right. Oh yeah, your ship lights are on.
Yeah, they are.
Just in case.
I'm scared of the dark. I think I had them on earlier for some reason because I was trying to highlight the ship, and I've just not turned them on.
Gabby, you are correct. It was terraformed, which is a fun word. I like that.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. Throw on. And there's if you go to Sol as well, there's a lot more information than what I'm currently giving. It's a lot more in depth. There's loads and loads of tourist beacons. You can go and scan them all. They've all got different bits of story. They've got a lot more about the politics. Right. Scroll down. Ooh. Yep.
Where is it in here?
I think it's your next one.
Orbit lines. There
you go.
So
better.
I normally like the lights on. I know people don't, but I like having lights on. But that's just me.
Oh, thank you, old duck. We will see you soon, and you are very welcome to come back and watch the rerun later.
We have now reached Mars.
Hey, look, Mars, and it kind of looks a bit like a smashed egg at the minute,
It does
which is
look
interesting.
a bit smashed, doesn't it?
So this is Mars, and as we can see, it's been terraformed. This happened in the 22nd century. Obviously, Earth, we kind of ruined it. We kind of had a bit of a nuclear war, and we kind of ran out of fossil fuels and a few other things.
We shouldn't be trusted with things at all, should we?
No, so we caused havoc on one planet, so we decided to leap over to another one. And although it was fairly crude, Mars was terraformed, but to the point where you didn't have to wear a helmet. You could breathe.
Oh.
Amazing. So you could live on Mars. And so the Federal Congress moved from Washington, D.C., obviously on Earth, and went over to Mars, which is where it currently is. And you will find every large corporation has either an office or a representative, but they have a presence in Sol based on Mars, which is now the new home basically of the entire system, which is pretty cool. Now, interestingly enough, while it was terraformed, fossils were found.
Fossils?
Fossils. No other details have been given at the minute. However, because it's kind of the Area 51 type thing. Find it, put it in a box. We aren't talking about it.
It didn't exist. We were here first. We were here first.
But fossils were found. Fossils of what?
Things.
Who knows? But in the beginning of the 23rd century, there was a non-human relic found alongside those fossils. And the non-human relic, again, very secret, not many details. We don't know who it's from. We don't know where it's from. All we know is it is smaller than a child's hand. Just a very little relic. I mean,
I don't have children's hands, but I'm assuming children's hands are about that size. So if it's smaller, but that size.
It was a very little relic. So we found
reference.
Fossils and we've found a relic. So maybe one day, who knows? Maybe we'll learn more. I'll see what I can find out. Are we ad-libbing lore? No, you can find all of this out there in the system, and obviously you can still see patches of the red planet, which I really quite like.
I like the dusty red bit still there, isn't it?
So. Yeah, so it was in 2291 that the second attempt to terraform Mars was successful. So they tried it once, didn't quite work. Tried it a second time, they got it to work. So the techniques they employed were crude, but they got them to work, which meant that humans could then walk on the surface and breathe, and you didn't need an oxygen suit or a respirator. They made it home,
Oh, nice.
which was super cool. Super
Everyone
cool.
seems to be calling it a Coca-Cola bottle lid or a
Coca-Cola
Budweiser can.
Sounds-
Somebody
the
just
corporations
threw
are there.
a beer. What is this thing that we've found? We've just found a beer cap. That's a planet, I find.
And then we find a vault under there, and they're using vault caps.
No.
But yeah, so at the same sort of time, in the beginning of the 23rd century, when we got over to Mars, there was an Earth Environmental Recovery Program, which was working to restore the polluted and radioactive regions of Earth to try and get the planet back in working order. So we kind of destroyed it a bit, hopped over to another one, lived there, and tried to fix up the old one, which did work because now the planet is a popular travel destination. You'll get lots and lots of wealthy people. Every rich person, it said, needs to visit there once in their life because they'll be able to go for a lovely holiday to Earth.
I need that holiday.
Well, maybe if you're rich, you can go to Earth. If not, you can stay on Mars.
That's not bad.
Necrobob is asking how you cruise around the planet.
So all you do is you do Super Cruise Assist. When you come into the planet, it starts to auto orbit around it. So you just go up to it, let it go, and it'll do this lovely shot for you. And it's really good for all of you photographers out there who want to go into the world and do that. You can do this with all planets before you start landing.
Yes.
It'll just auto rotate around them constantly.
Yeah.
So if you
all
find
bodies as well.
All bodies,
yeah.
so it's still any of them. So you can just basically go around them, and it's really cool.
Yep, it's a nice way to have a look around. So if you can't zoom in on your system map, you can actually go to it and you loop around and you can have a look about and see what it's like on the dark side.
Someone also commented earlier that my ship, the Alliance Chieftain, looks like a flattened squirrel. Which made me really giggle. So, because you cannot tell me that's not a flattened squirrel flying through the air. I like that. It doesn't come like that.
Yeah, what happened to Rocky and Bullwinkle was tragic. Either way. So yeah, 2291 is when the terraform of Mars was successful, which was great, and it seems a lot cool, like a lot gentler in terms of weather, which is nice because Earth was having a bit of a storm problem, which was a problem.
I love the patches you can see like here,
Which is really cool.
It's hard to point. Here, I'm not trying to look like showing off. Yeah, up here, I like that. It's cool.
Either way, so moving on from the sort of the United Federation, when it just became the Federation, from around the year 2300, so 2300, the federal colonies, so all the little colonies that sort of popped up, became congressional members. So they all joined a Congress and became a federal state. So they came together over about 200 years. However, loads of colonies came together, which meant that there were hundreds of colonies, and all of them wanted a say, and all of them wanted to be in charge, and it meant that nothing happened and nobody made any decisions because there was just people everywhere. So they ended up trying to sort of cut down the amount of people that could run the government, as it were. And so it was reduced to about 500, I believe. It's 500 congressmen and congresswomen sort of coming together, making the decisions. Like Sol, system of Sol, will have a bunch of congressmen and women. A congressman is just the term for men and women in the universe. So there'll be loads of congressmen coming together from here, but lots of other ones might only send one person. It really depends on the size of your colony, essentially. But which was pretty cool. So yeah,
awesome.
more and more federal states came in. It got really unwieldy, so they had to cut it down. So which president started the war? I'm not actually sure. I don't know if we have the details of who was the president in 2044.
But we can find
But
out.
if we can find out, then that would be pretty cool,
yeah.
and then we know who to blame. But at the same time, there's not a ton, record. Oh, Commander Bays started the war. Okay, Commander Bays was the president in 2044 and started the war. Thank you, Bays, for taking
right?
the blame.
2024 and started the war.
Pretty good. So yes, in 2594, so after that sort of 200 years when people were coming in, the bunch of people all together decided, no, we cannot manage this many people. Like, yes, we've got a system to manage, this is too much. So they cut them down to about 500. And the president's 4-year term, single 4-year term, when obviously you can then re-elect them for another 4 years, was extended straight to 8.
To 8?
Yes. But they had a vote of confidence in the middle.
Okay, so they had
essentially nothing changed. It was just the term. But I guess it was if nobody voted, then it just happened anyway. So after 4 years, you had a vote of confidence, and then you can just stay, which is pretty handy. So as such, the current president, which is Zachary, has been president since 3301 and will continue to be president until June of 3309.
3309.
Because there was meant to be a vote of confidence, but nobody really said anything, so he just assumed it and carried on.
Well, I'm not going to say anything if you're not going to say anything.
But this is the thing, now they cannot be re-elected after 8 years. Neither can Congress. Congress themselves are then swapped out after 8 years as well. So it always ensures that there's always new fresh blood in the Congress to keep the entire system and everybody else working together
We should
going.
use that system, shouldn't we?
It's pretty handy.
Very nice.
It's worked pretty well, I think. So, yeah, they work out of the Olympus village on the planet Mars. That's where they have their bases. That's where they all come together as the actual Congress. And again, as soon as you
Seems quite
keep
a
adding...
sought towards
Yeah.
job, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
get to live in this beautiful holiday destination and
Yeah.
decide the fate of the Federation. It's
Yeah,
quite
well,
interesting.
Olympus Village is equivalent to what we have now as Washington DC, because it's where all our politicians are. It's where it's where you obviously have the president. It's where you have all of the major corporations. It's where most of the money is. It's very big. You don't really get to live there unless you're a somebody. So you want to be a somebody.
We've got some great information from Malik VR. So I always say VR, Malik. It says that World War III tends to be very vague on who or what started it. And he believes that humans playing with AI is what did it, and why humanity does not allow AIs anymore, as this is only major events that all three superpowers have in common before everyone left the solar system.
And that's the thing, like, I don't have all the exact details because I'm not looking at the Empire today, but at one point the Empire did kind of split off and went their own way, and that's why you'll find them based in another system. They will still have people that come in and liaise here, but the Federation kept the home system because they were literally born here out of the USA.
Yeah.
So they came along. That's where it's gotten to, and that's how it currently is set up. There's roughly 500 congressmen and women out of Olympus Village on the planet Mars, and that's the thing. You need to be a somebody to be there. If you want to go to Earth, you better have money. If you do want to try and go down there, they may slap you, so be very careful. Crunch Butt Steak, great name.
I love it.
Stephen.
Right.
Has asked why Phobos isn't isn't around Mars in the game. I don't entirely know. I will double check. I know some of the absolute tiniest bodies that would be in Sol weren't sort of put in because they were literally too small to map at that point. So they're not in. But you know, who knows? I can always suggest it for the future so we can double look. But yeah, Phobos, as Valorant has said, isn't probably much bigger than an asteroid, so it would be minuscule as compared to the other things. You know, other things in here. Like I went round Pluto and I couldn't see it until I pretty much crashed into it. So, which yeah, pretty good. So, then we do get onto some details of another war. But why don't we go somewhere else? Someone suggested that Venus might be pretty.
Venus.
Let's go to
Let's go to Venus.
Let's have a look. So yeah, we stuck some colonies on Mars, and then we stuck colonies over on the Moon as well. So Luna. Yeah, Venus, high metal content world.
Nice.
Yes, we have some of the smaller dwarf planets, but I know that a lot of the tiniest ones haven't been sort of modelled. Yes, which HOTAS are you using, Steve?
I am using the Thrustmaster 4.
Yes,
Yep,
T-HOTAS 4.
T-HOTAS 4 for the PlayStation 4. I'm
Yeah.
using my own personal account because I had a Soul Pass and I was like, yeah, it'd be cool to go back and have a wee look around and go through that. So this is my own personal account. So you saw that I have tried to use because I play PlayStation more often. Sometimes with the PC, I don't know the exact control layout and mix up some stuff, and because we wanted to be more focused on the lore and what was really interesting, I wanted to get something that wasn't complex at all. So not complex, but to remember the different buttons. So we went for the PlayStation 4 this time.
Yeah. So yeah. And as I said earlier, if you do have any ideas of where you'd like us to cover, somebody did ask where the idea of a lore tour came from. We were talking about it last year, but it takes a fair amount of time to obviously go and look at everything in game and double check with the narrative guys that it all makes sense and you know it's what happened and I'm not just making things up because it sounds great. You know?
This sounds cool.
So it takes time, and I know that Drew Wagar is looking at doing one as well with a lot more information from sort of like the novels and that kind of thing. So definitely check out his as well. Should be in a lot more depth, and I believe he's doing a tour through the game that you can take with him as well.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to hear the lore from everybody else because there's so much in the Galaxy universe. I think Malik was watching it while he was waiting for the dentist appointment, sat and give a whole spread on Twitter.
He did, on Thargoids.
Which I just thought was brilliant because there is so much information in this Galaxy. So that's important. Like when we do these Thursday night streams, we want to bring you knowledge of things at the game. We want to bring you things that are happening in the community with the dev team. We want to try and get a lot of that covered, and that's why getting all this information, letting you guys know about it and talk with you guys about it is one of the things we enjoy doing.
So yeah, so these streams are going to be more based on, you know, the information that you can directly find in the game. So, you know, what is the current canon in-game lore that you can find.
Yeah.
But yeah, Akanar, we'll definitely look at doing Akanar. I wanted to look around the Pleiades and look at a bit more about some of the places that are set up out there. We'd like to look at Colonia, but there's probably going to be more places that you guys want to learn a bit more about. So suggest them, throw them to us on our social channels. You can tweet them at us. I'm at Paige H. Harvey, and you are?
At the Benedetti.
Yep, so you can find us nice and easily. Right, oh, you are right. Venus is pretty.
Yeah, it's pretty, isn't it?
I like how bright this one is compared to some of the others.
It's
So
nice.
these are very light. Yes, obviously here is Giant Egg.
This is egg number 3.
This is Egg. You use this to make pancake.
Egg. Why do you go to pancake?
This is planetary egg.
Most people go to like omelette
I was
or
thinking
or
of the last
fried
thing
dinner.
I used eggs for.
And pancake. I would say it was an omelette.
Jump into your external account. I want to have a look at it.
Okay, let's have a look at that beautiful strip. Sorry. Right, I got this.
My Arch. I don't have a list of every piece of literature that's currently confirmed lore. Obviously, there's lots of fan novels and things like that as well. And then there were some that were written around the Kickstarter days. I can try and find out which ones are considered canon, but there's so much stuff I don't know off the top of my head, I'm afraid. And I wasn't around in the Kickstarter time. Wow.
It's a nice egg.
I didn't expect to look up and see that. That is a good egg.
It's a good egg. It's quite interesting.
Little problem when it goes green, but close enough.
Yeah. One of the things, you actually had quite an interesting fact on the difference between lore and narrative.
Yes, so lore and narrative are technically do different things. So some things can be canon in lore, but some won't be canon in narrative, and that's across all games, not just Elite. So your lore is your fluffy backstory. It's all the cool bits of information, you know, like so-and-so's favourite colour was blue and they all like the number 27, they played the lute since they were 3, but none of that really has any bearing on your story. A narrative is what parts of a character, or say like the Federation, what parts about the Federation actually influence the game itself. So I like using The Witcher for an example, because The Witcher will have things like Geralt walking around and he likes this food and he likes playing Gwen and he likes doing these things and that thing. But, you know, the narrative stuff is he's a good fighter. The narrative stuff is, you know, he always has 2 swords. It's things that will really affect the game itself.
Ooh.
So yeah, that's the difference between the two. So while you will have the lore, you will also have the narrative, which is pretty cool. I just like it. And yes, you can blur it very nicely. And personally, I love it when a game has it blurred. And I really like that in Elite, I'm giving you as much sort of narrative as I can. But if you go out to Sol yourself and you go and scan the beacons like I did the other day, there's so much more information. There is so much extra story, and there's people to learn about. And there's a list of presidents, like notable ones that worked with space. You know, according to the Elite Dangerous sort of story. There's stuff about Jasmina Halsey in there. There's loads of really cool things. Really cool things. Look at that.
That's gorgeous, isn't it? I love the hue around the outside.
Yeah,
Great
gaseous. Zula Romeo, fun fact, Venus rotates backwards very slowly.
We need like a fun fact kind of thing. That every time there's a fun fact, it like comes across the screen. It's like, fun fact. I really love fun facts. I love facts.
Darkest Rose says, doesn't lore have an effect on narrative? It can do, but the idea is that when designing a game, as far as I understand, because I'm not a narrative designer, you'll want to make sure you have your narrative beats first, and then you can fluff it out with all the extra information, all the fun stuff. Yeah. It's all the stuff, but if you don't have your narrative and you don't have an idea of what your actual game does, or, you know, again, like the Federation, we know when it was formed and we know how it was formed. The fact that Zachary Hudson really loves pizza, that doesn't really affect, not that, well, I'm assuming he does, that he might like pizza affects the lore. Whoops! Sorry, I've just decided he likes pizza. Who doesn't really?
There's a squirrel in my pancake.
There's a squirrel in your pancake. Yeah, so it's one of those that it adds on to a narrative, but you don't have to have it. It's extra. So, anyway, going back into the actual story of what's happened, seeing as I'm just talking about game dev now then. Rainbow says, will this mostly just be the beacon lore? There is a bunch of beacon lore in here, but then I went and got a load of it off of Galnet as well. I went through and looked at different logs from around the systems as well about lore. I went and scanned anything and read anything I could find about Sol. I did quite a bit of deep research. It took me forever. Either way, let's move on to closer to the common day. So around it... Oh, it's gone a bit dark.
It's just black, isn't it? There's nothing there on that side.
So between 2621 and 2735, very specific years here, the federal member systems went through a period of societal change. So as I said, all these little colonies that came together became federal states. They all had people in Congress. Congress got so unwieldy that nothing was happening. So they cut it down to 500 people, shifted them all to a nice big beautiful base on Mars, and were actually able to start making decisions once again. Now the problem is that the original colonial charters that were set up gave people, like who were descended from original settlers, land and positions. So I guess, you know, if your family were born in a specific colony and they went up through it, that you may have been granted that land. I don't know the exact sort of, I know it will happen in today's society as well, or has happened. I don't know all the specific definitions, so I'm not going to go that far. But you may have been granted land in a position. And these were called birthright claims, because your family, going back and back and back, were granted that land based on who you were previously. And this extended across massive swaths of land and resources. And what do corporations love?
Resources.
They love resources. And if you have it, they want it. Here comes the problem. So the colonial... Potentially, yes. Well, not potentially. What erupted were the Birthright Wars.
Birthright.
Which is a pretty cool name, but not a good idea. So essentially, those charters that gave people from original settlers, like and all the areas that own land and the resources, they became trouble for corporations, because the corporations wanted to access the resources, they wanted to sell them, and they wanted to make money, because that's what they do. And so pressure was put on the current president and the administration in sort of the 2600s to change those rules, to give power to the corporations to shunt people off of their land, to take their resources and make money. And it sort of turned into war at that point because people didn't want to leave their land and people didn't want to lose what their whole family had sort of like earned and worked for over the years. The Federal Navy stood by. They didn't do anything.
Didn't do anything.
And what happened was the forced reacquisition, or as you may want to see it, the redistribution of hereditary rights. And people were forced off and resources were taken. And people were moved. As unfortunately, the corporations, while the government themselves didn't say this is bad or this is good, they didn't do anything. So, yeah, a lot of these people that would have been in these locations were moved off.
It's like in The Hobbit.
Yeah.
That's my reference to it. It's like in The Hobbit, and he's like, this is my only right. That was it. That was it. He was going back for his land. That's what would happen. Go back to your land and get your land back.
So, obviously, on from there, not a ton has, well, not a ton, it's like not a ton has been documented as actually having changed. Like, you know, the Congress still stands. Olympus is still, you know, where it's set up. Olympus Village. You know, Mars is still going. Earth itself has been largely healed. It's back to where it should have been as much as is possible after a nuclear war. You know, it's now a popular tourist destination. Rich people like to go there. It's guarded by a Farragut cruiser because you don't want to mess with that.
No.
It can be a little difficult to get into the system, but as Stephen said, with his permit, he did accidentally get it just by doing the odd mission for, you know, the Federation when they turned up. And there are now 23 billion people living in the democratic system controlled by Mother Gaia.
And Gaia is Earth.
And Gaia, well, yes, Gaia, Mother Earth.
Yeah.
So,
fact.
yes.
My knowledge.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there's quite a bit
And
of
that's
history
how
there.
we got. There's so much in that. And
there's a lot more as well. Like
Yeah.
some of the logs will talk about the creations of the FSD, and they'll talk about sort of the backstory and what came out of the generation ships. And if you want to know more about the political powers and all that kind of thing, there's a lot more out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So much information in this game.
Yeah.
So much interesting facts and points, and there's so much to speak about. It's brilliant.
So as I said earlier, current president of the Federation, who is based, you know, out of my brain completely died out of Mars, took office in 3301. That's Zachary Hudson, the very stone-faced man that he is. But he will remain until June 3309 because no one voted him out, and nobody has a chance to now because it's past 4 years. So that's there.
It's going to keep going.
There are obviously a couple of nice little Easter eggs out there as well. So if you are a fan sort of our current space history, you can find both Voyager probes.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll find both 1 and 2 out there. They're a little bit of a trek, but you can get to them a lot easier with the FSS. You can now find them fairly easily. You don't have to triangulate to get to them. But you'll also find the New Horizons probe if you want to find that as well.
Yeah.
And then there is one more, which I found quite funny when I was reading it. So you will find a tourist beacon if you head out called the Interplanetary Road Trip, which I'm guessing you can probably, well, figure out what that is. But it tells the story of a high-profile business magnate who launched a car into space. What man does that?
Why would you launch a car into space?
Why would you put a car in
Just for
space? Well, this is the thing. Several hundred years later, people thought, it's been up there long enough. Maybe we can go and get it and put it in a museum as like, look, a space car. So they put a ton of money together because obviously you have to then do an expedition and send a ship up there and get people to wrangle the car and pull it back in. And they went to get it and they got to the place where they figured out it would be and it wasn't there. And they're pretty sure it was nicked by space pirates. Just
so
came along.
You can't trust
and
anybody with nice things, can you? You can't put a
No.
nice thing, try and do an interesting thing.
No, they went out there, nicked it, and took it away again. Yeah.
Bravo.
So there you go. The history of our solar system is steeped in war and lots of murder and
disappointment
and having to accidentally terraform one new place and then try and make living situations on another
livable.
Just because we caused a nuclear war. Yeah, but the current situation seems to be pretty solid. Does Elon Musk play Elite? I know he played the old games. I'm not sure if he plays Elite Dangerous, but that would be pretty cool. Feel free to ask him.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be pretty cool. most of the oh God, I've lost all the words now. I've been baffled. Most of the system is still out there and beautiful for you to go and look at.
Yeah.
Jump in, have a look around.
Jump in,
Don't get too close to Mars itself. They might get a little grumpy. Don't go and fly into that Farragut. They will kill you.
Boom.
Yeah, but if you do need a black market, you'll find a few of them there.
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. So I
There
think that's all the lore that we've got for this evening, which
Yeah.
was fantastic. It was filled with really interesting information. I know a bit about the lore, obviously.
Yeah, I'll quiz you next week.
No quizzes. Obviously, working on the project, playing the game and stuff like that. But it's really interesting to get a bit more in-depth detail of what we've got because, like we said, we have a great team that we go to and we discuss things that we can talk about and really get cool information on, and they've been fantastic as always. And that's what's really interesting when you watch these streams.
And there's a lot more, and as I say, we're going to be looking at Akinar in the future and the Empire. We'll probably have a look around the Pleiades and learn a bit more over there. And I guess we'll have a look at Colonia, and yes, we'll see what happens. If you have other places, other things you'd like to learn about, suggest them. We'll see if we can do them. Depends how much I can find out.
Yeah, and just to give a wee recap for anyone who's just joined in a wee bit later on in the stream, this week we released the second patch for the January update. It's patch number 2, and it'll have brought the stuttering fix into consoles, which was previously given out to PC, and there's another few ones in there. Some issues have been reopened, and we appreciate all the feedback and the knowledge we got. It's a really great process to keep this going. Even though January update has came out, we'll now be moving on, and everybody's asking us what's coming next, what's going on next. As soon as we get the confirmation of what we are announcing and putting out in dates and times, you will be the first people to know. We're working on all of this. We want to shout it all to the rooftops. Or there'll be a lot of questions in the chat about different things, and asking about fleet carriers and different stuff. As soon as we have information to tell you, promise you will be the first to know. It will be one of the most exciting days of our lives to tell you this, because this year hopefully will be a great year.
This year has got plenty to come. So the minute we can tell you, we will.
We shall, and we really appreciate you all coming through to watch this stream, learn a bit of lore. Like we say in all of our Thursday night live streams, we want to do these streams to bring you some information. So we've got really cool streams coming on our way.
Next week should be fun.
Next week is going to be a very interesting.
Shall I tell them?
Go for it.
So we have got our first proper VR setup for us to play with, which is very fun. And there's a gentleman who you may have seen in the chat who will probably be joining us. We're going to smooth out all the details, but we should have a lovely, very special community guest. We're going to be strapping me into a VR headset. Going to have a look around the back of some ships and probably check out some.
Possibly. We'll see.
So
we'll
next
see how
week
it goes.
should be very cool.
Yes.
See how nauseous I can get. I tend to do okay.
So
but
that's gonna be really
it might be a certain Malik VR. It could be. Might be in the name.
Yeah.
So next week should be awesome. We're gonna have a lot of fun. We're gonna play around with some VR.
If you're really into that, if you're really into VR stuff like that, please come join, check it out. It'll be the same time next week, 7 p.m. UTC.
Very nice.
We'll also have our Monday live streams, which is at 12 p.m. UTC. So you can come check them out there. Again, we will keep you up to date with all news on the future of the game, fleet carriers, things that are going on. If you have any questions, please come talk to us on the forums. We love all the questions that were in the chat tonight. Thank you so much for coming. And we are looking forward to seeing you next time.
On Monday I'll be playing, so obviously you may know that I started over my account again. So while we are at the beginning, if you are new to the game, you have any questions, anything around the starter systems or getting your first, tens of thousands of credits, your first new ship, all that kind of thing, come along and ask them. Pop them on the forums beforehand. I'll make sure I can get some questions and some answers together. We'll learn a little bit about how to be a baby in a brand new galaxy. And we'll work together.
Baby in a brand new galaxy.
Baby in a brand new galaxy.
You do know I want to change the name of the stream to that now.
I did call my ship Baby's First Ship. So.
Baby in a brand new galaxy.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. Let us know what you want to learn about. Come and join us next week for some interesting VR and some stuff on Monday. And we will see you all very soon.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Brilliant. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
07.